So there's another one now that you're going to show us, right? And
Okay, yeah. Well, what happened is it's kind of part of that confusion that we talked about earlier. Um, so Bill decides to move out of the old Fillmore, keeps
uh
Winterland, which we just saw, and he moves to Market Van Ness to the Carousel Ballroom, which holds 2,000 people.
yeah,
It's got a really cool wraparound light show, and it becomes the classic venue of San Francisco for the next 2 years. Opened in '68 and went to '71.
the Fillmore
And also
West,
simultaneously with that, he opened at Fillmore East,
right?
and it's the same deal happened there. He ran it from the same year. He
Yeah,
took the money he made in '67 and Summer of Love, and he invested in these two venues.
he's getting big
And
time now. He's
right, and
bi-coastal
so
and
right,
yeah,
and so he's this is what he did. He would have 4 nights of the Fillmore West. Okay, so Thursday night you got a couple bands there, Grateful Dead, Boss Skaggs, whatever. So he kind of hangs out, gets them going, meets the bands, makes sure everybody's happy. So he leaves about 11 o'clock at night and he drives to SFO,
the
hops
airport.
a plane, and he arrives in New York at 6 in the morning, the red eye. Right?
So he's
Takes the
finishing up the
subway in,
show. Yeah,
jumps out at the Fillmore East, opens the door, and now he's going to have Friday night and Saturday night, 2 shows each with the Who and whoever, Jimi Hendrix or whatever.
right.
And so then Saturday night, he says goodbye to the bands, make sure they settle up, takes the money, goes back to the airport, flies back to California, and they're still playing on Sunday night, the Grateful Dead and Boss Skaggs, and he ends up settling with them and hanging out with them. So it looks like he's covered.
Did he sleep at all? Like, what's like?
The guy didn't sleep, and he couldn't sleep very much. I mean, that's
That's
like
the thing.
unforgettable.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
imagine I would be pretty stressed out too if I'm running, 3 venues and cross country.
you're right. But I mean, it's kind of brilliant, if you think about it, because
Yeah,
after you finish Saturday night, you fly, even if you fly at like 6 in the morning,
yeah,
you gain 3 hours, so you get to San Francisco at noon, right?
right.
And you can go open up at 3 on Sunday, and see and hang with the bands.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That's
he crammed them
crazy.
in Fillmore. They do 2 shows at Fillmore East.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's go to the Fillmore West. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. Let's check out the Fillmore West. Yeah.
All right. So there is the Carousel Ballroom with the line around the corner.
So it was called the Carousel Ballroom first,
Yeah, but you can see he's got his Fillmore name on it because,
right?
and then he dragged the Fillmore to West and East. So
Right.
Fillmore West is here,
So,
and Grateful Dead have just released Working Man's Dead, and they're going to play
oh,
there this
and you
afternoon.
see at the billboard up top.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's cool. So and then so it was officially like, did it ever officially change its name to Fillmore, or was it just branded Fillmore, or was it always called the Carousel Ballroom?
No, you can see up above the Carousel Ballroom, it says Fillmore West.
Right, right.
So,
So people call it the Fillmore, even though
I mean, these places are built in like 1911. These
right.
ballrooms. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
and like after the earthquake in San Francisco.
Hmm, hmm.
So, that was the carousel was probably for like big bands and dances. My parents went to or whatever.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Here is Albert King and Country Joe and the Fish, Bloodwind Pig, Fillmore West, Brother in the Light. I went to the show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so this was yeah, I actually went to that concert.
Yeah,
Um,
you can see the Brotherhood of Light there. It's a little small, but in between Bloody or Bloodwind Pig and Fillmore West, you see the Brotherhood of Light, which
yeah,
like we were saying, by this point, light shows are now getting billing on the posters. It's treated as an art form. It's you know, it's
yeah.
it's it's getting the respect that that it deserves.
Okay, so we're gonna go. This next poster is really cool. Okay,
Oh
so
wow.
the Who, James
Yeah.
Cotton. Okay,
And this this
and
is this is a Rick Griffin
Rick
poster,
Griffin,
isn't it?
right? And is Brotherhood on here? I don't know, but they did that
No,
Who
no, I
show.
see it. Holy See at the where it says bottom left, or Fillmore West on the
Oh,
left of it, Lights
yeah,
by Holy
Holy See.
See, which was one of the
Okay,
big light shows back then.
right, right, which we mentioned earlier. Okay, so now, but there's two gigs. One is at Winterland, and one is the Fillmore.
Okay.
Well, maybe it's 2 weeks. I don't know. Actually, it's a bunch of different dates. Okay, let's go to the next slide because this is the Who
Mm-hmm.
doing a live show at the Fillmore, and you can see that it's a low ceiling
Mm-hmm.
in the building.
Right.
Look, there's the lights, those shadows that are on the screen here.
Yeah, yeah, hit it with the laser pointer. Yeah, you can see the Licos kind of
Right.
hanging down a bit. I mean, that's
So
pretty
these are actually shadows of lights that are out in the audience shining on the band right here.
right.
The light show is so far back behind, it's like 120 feet.
Mm-hmm.
They're projecting the liquids onto the stage. Uh, so now they also, okay, so this is the center behind the band. It's like, maybe what, 15 feet by 30 feet,
Mm-hmm.
a 40 feet wide stage. Okay. Then around the sides of this room, there's wraparound screens. So I'm going to go to that next slide. Oops. And you can, this is Santana.
Okay.
And back here, the laser pointer is the light show booth.
Oh yeah, you can see them.
All of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some spotlights and stuff. And then I don't even think they have a light show on at this point because it's just like grand finale type thing with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But you see the screen there?
Yep.
Okay, so that screen wrapped around, and do the next slide, and it went all the way around the back of the stage and all the way around the other side.
Right.
So you're talking 120 feet here and 50 feet on each side.
Uh-huh.
So what happened was, there's the light show booth up here.
Oh yeah, yeah, yep.
They had to feel like this panel right here would be a slide projector, and this panel would be another slide projector, and this one would be another slide projector. So you really needed 6 slide projectors to do double images on those panels. Then back here, you had your liquids and your film loops and maybe another overhead or another slide. And then you had the same thing on the other side. So you needed 12 slide projectors to do the Fillmore, just to fill
Yeah.
the slide panels.
Right, because there's just so much. Like, how many people you think would be in these light shows? I mean, did the other light shows have to bring on extra people and extra assistants and hands to work
Well, we had,
here?
we'll break that down. Let's just do a slide. There's Country Joe and Led Zeppelin, Taj Mahal,
Yeah.
that little light on the license
Oh yeah,
plate.
yeah. But light on the license plate. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll get to that question. I'm just going to go through
Okay.
this.
Yeah, yeah,
So this was Grateful Dead, okay,
yeah.
and they have an album called Live Dead. It's
Hmm.
their definitive heavy jamming album, and they recorded it at this show,
Yeah.
Brotherhood of Light.
And you can see the Brotherhood of Light on
Yeah,
the door handle there of that poster.
this Brotherhood of Light thing right
Yep.
here, and then this is them playing
Okay.
that show.
This is the actual show.
Yeah. And you can
Yeah.
see, once again, you can see those shadows of all those
How
lights.
low the damn
shadows
screen is.
because
Yeah.
different projections.
How high? What is that? Like 12 feet tops?
It's
I mean, if
probably, from the top of like a Marshall amp, it's probably 12 feet.
right. Yeah.
So, okay, so what you had here was, I'll go to the next slide. Just, I think it'll help us imagine what you're doing. Okay, so here is the Fillmore now.
Mm-hmm.
It's been saved.
The Fillmore West.
Yeah, Fillmore West carousel. It's supposed to be torn down. They've torn out the gold lame ceiling,
Yeah.
and so the stage would be here.
Yeah.
That's that 120 feet, and the other screen would come all the way out to here, and the light show booth would be back here.
Okay.
40 feet of booth. Right? So you had 2 guys hitting the center with liquids, and maybe a third guy washing plates, and then doing like another overhead with maybe color wheels and like hard image candy dishes or film or whatever. And then you had, this panel with slides, that panel, and that panel. So you had the person on that side loading those slide projectors. You had a person on this side loading slide projectors over here, hitting
Mhm.
those side panels. And then you had a guy in the middle doing film loops also
Mhm.
with like 3. So you really got, it's going to take three, four, five, 6 people to run that show.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah, that's
up
crazy.
there, and and a massive amount of electricity because it's these are all like 1,000 watt, 500 watt projectors, every one of them.
Yeah, and you were telling me you guys would like, you guys would have to bring your own fuses, and I think the last time we talked, you were talking about the glass fuses, and now I actually remember, as
Mhm.
a kid, I do remember seeing the glass. They look almost like door handles, like a crystal,
Yeah, right, right. You say it
Yeah,
like a small, like a cabinet handle.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so I'm gonna go to Glenn McKay here,
Oh
and
yeah, and this is Glenn McKay, who's
so
one of
he's in
the
the Fillmore, and the reason I know he's in the Fillmore for 2 reasons. There's a spotlight behind him,
right, which we
and,
saw shining in some of those other photos. Yeah,
and then right here, you see how small that crop on his projector is?
right,
That's all the liquids he's got to show
right,
because he's throwing 120 feet,
right.
you
So
know,
yeah, yeah.
and the screen's only like 30 by 15 feet high, you know.
Right. So
So he
for
has
so
just this tiny little
so for
thing.
folks can understand, I mean, the way a beam comes out like this, but as it gets farther away, it gets wider and wider. So if he used that whole part of the stage or the image plane of the overhead projector,
Mhm.
he'd be blowing the whole thing out. So he had to focus it by
Yeah.
really cropping out. And that is an extremely small mask. And because you said it's what, like 120-foot throw distance or something like that.
Uh, you know, well, it's got a basketball court. A basketball court's 90 feet, right? They have
Okay.
two basketball hoops. Well, they were like 10 feet from the wall, each one, or whatever.
Okay.
So, if you added 90, maybe it was 110,
Yeah, yeah.
across the building.
But he
And
has
then back in these like hallways, there was people sitting in there also. So,
right.
but, but it's probably 110 feet, I'm
But
assuming.
yeah, this is a cool image. I mean, if we can stay on it, because this is like a classic, classic image. Like you can see his color wheels, you can see also like all his different dyes. And we talked about he's got these like Flowmaster inks, which are those cans, which are you can't get them anymore because like I said, I'm pretty sure they're based in like xylene or something like that.
Oh,
So they've discontinued those, and they use you guys use some gnarly chemicals back then, right? Or
well,
would you
they did.
yeah.
By the time Pete and I started doing it, well, I did liquids when I was a kid, but it was like my mom's stuff in the kitchen.
All right, right. You take yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But which you can do, you can take peanut oil and you can take water and food
Sure.
color, do a light show. I mean, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Now there's a variac in there in the middle
Right in the
that gives
middle
you
of
the control
variac,
on
and,
the
and for,
color
for
wheel
people who don't
or the
know what's a variac, it's
variac is right here. It's a controller that gives you it fades out your electricity.
right.
So when you design these projectors, which we're going to get into in the next show, you take your lamps and you run them straight into the variac. You keep your fans running in these fan areas
Hmm.
at all times, and you can dim the light up and down, and you can also drive the wattage of the light bulb brighter
Oh,
by
brighter than it.
variacing it to like 140 to 110 is your normal, or 120 is your normal
Yep.
electric.
Yep.
Well, we would go to 160
Oh, okay.
to get brighter because you're throwing that distance. You got to be really bright, to
Yeah.
show up. That was a lesson that.
What's that other stuff? So I see some stuff that's almost like switches. If you look at the tray with his oils, right underneath
I
it.
don't know, but I have a funny feeling that might have been color wheel.
Oh, like it would make the color wheels move.
Well,
Right. I don't know if we
you
talked
turn
about
on the color wheel, and there's a couple speed controls here. It looks like.
right, right.
But
Yeah,
they
so
well, the box.
you have that color wheel in front of, and this is a big one that's passing through both projector beams, correct?
Possible. It looks like maybe just one. I can't
Maybe
tell.
just
Yeah,
one, yeah.
maybe both. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Both.
And then the other thing that I've really found always interesting about this picture is he has these like shades or what do you want to call it? Like tinted windows almost, right? Like
Oh, right, right.
yeah, if you like point at him at the laser pointer,
Oh,
please.
yeah, okay. Yeah, these right here. So when he from his eye, he's looking down at the liquids. It's not frying him.
Right. So anybody who's ever done this, staring at the actual light source in front of you, I mean, it's blinding, and it sucks because your eyes need time to adjust. So when you look up, you're suddenly a little blinded about, what's on the screen and all that. So it's brilliant. I've never really seen it used much, but it's a great idea really to, allow him to have keep his vision correct throughout the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jerry had those at his projectors when I used them, and
Yeah.
Jerry Abrams and Glenn had the same projectors, and these are hot rod
Because they
projectors.
work together. I mean, maybe we can talk a little bit about them. Because there were or tell us about it. Maybe they work
Okay, so
together
yeah,
and
just
yeah,
just to get it straight, and people know this. And Jerry Abrams and Glenn McKay were called Headlights originally.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so it was headlights, you know, headlights in the car, but headlights being hippies are heads, right?
right. Okay.
Headlights. Okay. So, but Jerry Abrams is like an explosive dude, and Glenn is like a total like laid back guy.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know how long they lasted, but it wasn't that long.
There's a
So
little-
they ended up being Jerry Abrams headlights and Glenn McKay headlights.
Okay.
So that's how they split. Okay.
Right.
So
Uh,
Glenn goes on and he goes on tour with the Jefferson airplane.
Right. Which there's some great videos of. If you look up old
Right. And
Jefferson airplanes, really good light
he
show
does a couple
videos.
television shows with them, which you see
Yeah, yeah. He
Dick
got on
Cavett.
TV with them, and yeah,
And he was like a fifth or sixth, whatever, how many band members, seventh band member. And he
yeah.
got a percentage of the gate or their money that they made because
Right,
he was one of the only guys that really went to make really good money for a while in this business back then.
right. And I've seen his technical rider. I mean, he'd have it whenever the airplane would tour. He'd have a technical rider with what they needed for him to rear project and all those kinds of things, which is nice to have because a lot of times you get to a venue and they're like, "This is what you have," and work with it. But he seemed, my understanding too of the differences between Jerry, and maybe we can talk about it at another episode. But like you said, like Jerry Abrams was like a explosive personality, and I
Hmm.
guess Glenn was more controlled about his shows, where Jerry was more like working by feel or sort of more.
Well, Jerry Abrams, and we don't have, we're going to see, actually, I'm going to go to Jerry Abrams a little bit. I'll explain. Can we
Yeah, yeah,
move
yeah, yeah,
on?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's
Okay,
let's
let's
let's,
just
let's move
go
off of it.
because you're feeding into what is going to come. Okay, so this is the last shot of the Fillmore.
Okay.
you know, and okay, just to add on to all of us, all the potheads in the audience here, there was this gold lame ceiling that kind of went like this. It was like gold lame, and it was a low ceiling, and so when you were there, everybody was smoking pot, and I don't care if you inhaled or not. If you were breathing in the room, you got hot.
You got the contact high. Yeah,
Well, you breathe. The air was just full on pot smoke. Okay,
yeah.
the Fillmore. Okay, pretty high. All right,
Yeah.
with your $3 ticket.
Hmm.
All right, so this show is
Yeah.
the Grateful Dead and Miles Davis, and Ed told me that this is one of his favorite shows. He said it was just killer. And
Oh, yeah.
can you imagine doing like a light show to Miles Davis, and you're using all your abstract art and weird shit, and just and he's playing Bitches Brew, that album, and
Yeah.
in that period, and I mean we're talking some really really cool stuff.
Oh,
And then of
yeah.
course Grateful Dead are pretty out there
And then
themselves.
you got the Dead. I mean, that together on a bill is like, this is just a fan. I mean, this is like this is like one of these, like if I was to go back in time, I'd definitely try to hit up this show.
Yeah, and the fact that Ed says it was his favorite show.
Yeah.
Okay, now here is the
The Allman
Allman Brothers
Brothers.
at the Fillmore West. We can see the thin screen again, the lights back here. And there's a flower slide, and that is Little Princess 109
Okay.
doing the light show for that
Yeah.
show. And okay, I'm going to go to here, and then we're going to go. Okay. So now we've got Quicksilver, Messenger Serves, Mock the Hoople, Silver Meter, Brotherhood of Light. I was at this show. And this kind of artwork that Singer put together in his poster
Hmm.
would be something I would put in a light show,
Right.
an image. Like I'd be flying through liquids or something,
Right. Right.
It's a
Because
kind
the
of art.
collaging, the
Yeah,
collaging is really an important element of you know, what Brotherhood of Light did or other light shows did, and just in general, in my opinion too, what a good light show should be. Not just like the liquids and abstract, but kind of tell a story and throw some, concrete imagery in there and sort of make your mind start creating like a story almost, or like a
Right, right.
like
Or
a
so,
like a
a guy flying through liquids, it kind of works. It looks like he's surfing or something.
yeah, yeah.
There's Led Zeppelin, I believe, is Fillmore. You can sort of see that same kind of screen
Yeah,
look,
it's low. Yeah.
low again. And then now we're going to go to the slide banks.
Yep. Which yeah.
And this is, so these butterfly slides, for instance,
Yeah.
you'd have a bank of the three butterfly slides going around the side. And then on another projector, you might have three of these color slides.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you're running a color wheel on that, and you're animating the butterflies on top of the liquids, boom, boom, boom. And you're controlling the speed with these variacs or, like light dimmer things.
Yeah.
And when the band slows down, like Miles Davis goes into a weird jam or something, you slow everything down and it just starts, boom, and then when they go crazy, you speed it up.
Right, because it's not just the
Great.
slides that are being projected, and I know we're going to talk about this in other episodes, but there's also different types of optical modulation in front of the wheel. The slides that are changing the color and spinning and warping them or anything, and if we just talk about these real quick, because I know when we were kind of like reviewing this stuff, I'm pretty sure that these are slides that I now have because for a couple of reasons. So Bob Lewis, who is an American guy, but ended up living in London, got down with the scene there and stuff like that, and was really, he's an American guy, but he learned light shows over in England, and then
Oh,
came back here.
cool.
Um, these slides, he also had Charles Phillips and Michael Polizzi in their light show called Nuclear View Light Show, and then they were the Northern Lights. So Bob Lewis passed away a couple of years ago. I inherited all of his stuff. But these slides were actually made from Codalits by Michael Polizzi. And the reason why I'm saying that I'm pretty sure these are, my slides, because the ones on the left there, they're like he hand tinted this stuff. So this isn't like something that you walk into a store and buy. You know what I mean? Like the rarity for somebody to make, and he told me how to make these, like, so yeah, and then so some of the interesting things they told me that they would do is also do polarized slides where they would have negative images of each other, and so they'd spin like a polarized wheel in front of them, which would sort of create this like strobe effect.
Right, and
um
you can see that it's hard to see on this Zoom,
yeah,
but
the
like
face of the yeah, the
these
woman's
slides
face on the
here are
left side.
full
Yep.
size slides. They're
Yeah.
not 30. These are 35 millimeters down here. See,
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
but these are full size. They're big.
Yeah. Yeah. They're glass. Yeah. I
Yeah,
wonder if
they're
I.
mounted in glass.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that we all had these type of slides. The Brotherhood had them. We all had these banks of slides and these big light tables to. So the band starts playing, and you're like, oh, this is cool for spirals, or this is good for, you pick stuff, and you kind of learn when you're doing slides what looks good with music and how
Right.
to edit a show as you're doing it live. And it's just an education that, like, the people that were taught by Jerry, the second generation, like Reed, Donovan, and Phyllis Laurie, they did slides like I did. And you learn, it's a cool thing because you're jamming live with the band.
Yeah.
You're singing, you're listening to music and adding images.
And you have to take a light table with you to the venue, right? So you can actually prep them and stuff like that. And
Right, and they might have left one of the Fillmore. I don't know. Jerry
yeah.
Radcliffe told me they left liquids and then they'd share them. So they might have
Okay.
left. They might have had a light table built in. I mean, it makes sense, right? Why not?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, we're going to be doing shows here, so let's just leave one,
Yeah.
and then everybody can use it.
And
Let's
this
go to the next.
and the slides were very, very deliberate. Like it wasn't like a carousel where you just run them on random. Like you would very much be like, all right, we're gonna pop this one in, we're gonna pop that one in.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, when you had to run two banks of, let me get into this right now. You had to run two banks of slides because you changed them by hand. Okay, so you have to put your hand over the slide projector so it doesn't gate, so it doesn't get white light.
Mhm.
You pull one out, put another one in, and then you reveal it, and you go down the row. Well, the other bank of slides is still running, so it's not like a blank screen ever. Then you go change the other row.
Right.
So you have to have two rows going, and Ed would call it, if it's just one row of slides going, he'd call it electric wallpaper.
Right. It's just
It's not what we
wallpaper.
wanted.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a
And then
it's
for
not a
color wheel,
decoration.
both slides are animating together, on the screen.
Right.
So this is another show, Brotherhood of Light, Janis Joplin, and I think this is kind of a good example. This next one of really cool looking slides.
Okay. Yeah.
With Santana, and you can see how awesome. I think this is Jerry Abrams' show because he did a TV show with Santana in Europe.
Yeah.
So
well, I think that little like sort of electricity thing on the left that you see there looks almost like that slide that we saw when you introduced the rear projection at the Fillmore.
Right.
Like, and so this stuff, right? It's kind of, I think it's hard to, this would definitely be, it's a beautiful image, but as if you were able to see a video of it, this would be doing all kinds of crazy stuff because you have all kinds of wheels and everything go through it and pulling different parts of the image out and in. So this is like a very animated live thing as it's actually going on. Like it's strobing, it's shifting colors and animating, like you said, as it's going on.
Okay, so here is the guys up in the booth, the slide projector people.
Yep.
In this case, it's a woman. They're using those German slide projectors, those, and look, there's one there. Each one of these spots is one. There's probably, it looks like there's about 6 or 7 slide projectors going behind the 2 color wheels. And, they're just hand loading them like crazy,
Yeah.
And, but the bigger color wheels now on our light show site, Light Show Preservation Society, a lot of people use small wheels. We always use the big one because you have the 3 different slide projectors. Each projector would be a different color.
Separate.
Yeah. So this is a classic color wheel look. Okay.
Right. So, yeah. And we're going to talk about this in the next episode, right? A little bit more about the wheels.
Yeah.
But it is important now just to set context of what's actually going on here.
How much they had to deal with.
Yeah.
Those sidewalls of the Fillmore.
Right.
It just, and there was, like I think I said in the last one, there's the slide guys and there's liquid guys. They're 2 different animals,
Right.
Because, the liquid guys don't like to deal with the slides because they just want to smosh the plates around. Okay, now here's a bunch of really cool slides.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Another guy's collection, and you can see they're just awesome. You put that one up and this one together and did a color wheel on it. It would do totally, and they're separate color wheels. Well, this one's blue, that one's red, and they're going to start giving you a three-dimensional effect.
And it's in principle, it's not much different than like a GIF right now, where you have like just a 2 or 3 frame animation. But even though it's 2 or 3 frames, it can do a lot. It's not much different than, what we see digitally or going back hundreds of years to Magic Lantern slides, which, were precursors to, projection, or the very, very, very first projection from the 1700s. And they would use very simple, 2-frame animation, kind of, person's arms like this, next frame, they're like this. And you do that really fast, it looks like somebody's moving. But you guys,
the other thing is that in the 60s, everybody had a movie projector and a movie camera and shot their family at birthday parties. And they had a slide projector. The slides were pushed by Kodak. So it was kind of a revolution of a color was happening and projection was happening in the 60s.
Right, because I guess also too, like color, I mean, black and white, a lot of stuff was shot in black and white, but color film started to kind of come out now too around this time.
Slides came out, so you could shoot a slide and get a slide projector and blow it up on your wall.
Right.
Yeah. And that was kind of cool. I had a slide projector, I had an overhead projector, I had a movie projector. 2 of those were my dad's, and I bought them. The overheads I could do light show like as a kid. Okay, so here's Jerry Abrams with his crazy setup, with his animation wheels, his color wheels in the back, as you can see right here.
Yep.
He's got an overhead. He's got those old slide projectors, and then this guy over here has got the film loops. You see those loops?
Oh yeah, those strips. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have a special little rack they're hanging on. So you can just pick one, put it on the projector.
Hmm.
So there's a film loop guy that's just doing film loops, and
Yeah.
that was one of the magical part of the Fillmore show is you saw these crazy loops and wild film. You know,
Yeah.
look how many of them are there, and there's
Oh
probably
yeah.
like 3 on each one of these racks or 4. You know, it's not
Yeah.
just one strip of film. That's like,
Yeah, I mean,
and
and just looking at this setup, I mean, the labor intensity of this is nuts. I mean, you get all these wires coming out. I'm sure I mean, even now when they do light shows, I mean, stuff breaks down. This is like DIY, homemade stuff. You don't walk into there's no factory cranking these out, so you got stuff that's gonna also break down. Like so it feels like Captain Kirk, not Captain Kirk. Who's the other guy? Scotty, when he's always trying to like fix the Enterprise when there's always something going down on it. And I imagine this is what this was like.
yeah, well, you've got vice grips. You've got these stands, these poles that you're seeing here, these
Yeah.
3 poles. Those are chemistry stands
Yeah.
that you see in chemistry class. I'm going to go to the next slide. You'll see them here. So there they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And you might want to clamp them on the table,
Hmm.
and then you mount the motor up here, and then you have a rheostat that comes down, and you run the speed of your wheels,
Hmm.
and then he's got color wheels. His show is super intense.
So yeah, because I'm looking at this. So he actually has 2 layers of wheels. He's got one for the color, but then he's got the other one with the holes to kind
Yeah,
of
that's the animation wheel.
that's the
So that's
animation
that
wheel.
arm animation, like you were saying.
Yeah,
Picture like
yeah.
this, picture like that. Then it's going
Right, like
to
one slide's doing this and the other slide's doing this, and then you do
right.
it real fast. And then before that, you have the color wheels also kind of changing color. I mean, I can imagine this looks nuts in real life.
Right, and then so meanwhile, here's a total, you know,
Yeah.
light table, crazy, all the different images that we built,
Hmm.
when we build. And there's the West Mount boxes right there, the West Mount slides,
Yeah.
and we mount them in glass slides so they didn't jam in the projectors.
Hmm.
And stuff like this, where you get this going this way and that going that way, and you animate them, and
Right, right. Yeah.
patterns on the screen like that, which look really cool. And then, so you can sort of see here. Okay, so now this is the Abercrombie light show,
Yeah.
and this was
Abercrombie.
in the last days of the Fillmore fold out.
Hmm.
And this is the guy George. Is that his name?
No, this is actually also John Hartman, who was also actually in Heavy Light, became also Abercrombie. That was also their light show. And I don't know which one came first, but you know, yeah, basically also John Hartman is one of the people in Abercrombie, and yeah, who's also part of Heavy Light doing this stuff. Yeah.
So this is the Grateful Dead.
Yeah,
Great
that's
light
a
show
beautiful
shot. I thought
image.
slide
Yeah.
on and thing. Yeah.
The Dead actually posted on their page. You see Bob over there on the right side. They actually posted another angle. Must have actually been like the same photograph taken almost at the same time, because the slide behind them is almost the same. And I was like, checking out like the positioning of the cups on top of the tie-dye stuff. So like just pure coincidence. You have a shot of Bobby from the front, and if you look on their page, they posted a couple of weeks ago, and you got this one from the side as well. So it's just kind of, just a rarity of actually taking an image. I mean, because first of all, light show photos are pretty hard to come by. Like the stuff that you've been showing us is like some of this stuff is like deep dives. Like they weren't well documented. They were hard to photograph, or people just forgot to do it. And
Well,
so
especially the Fillmore East, because of the rear projection they had, they're only like 15 feet from the screen, and they really showed up well there.
yeah,
And so there's a lot of pictures, which is going to be a up and coming episode
yeah,
of the Fillmore East, but the Fillmore West and I mean, these are hard to find.
yeah.
I got a shot here. It's kind of interesting.
Hmm.
And this could be like the Matrix, or it could be the Avalon. And I think these fireworks are. It could be. I think this is Glenn McCain. There's some painted slides. There's fireworks, which could be a film loop
Hmm.
of fireworks. You see how much brighter they are on top of the Payne's Finds.
Oh yeah.
And I believe there's probably an Avalanche shop.
Okay.
There's Paul Kantner and Jack Cassidy from Injection Airplane, the drummer.
Yeah.
And, so, people are walking around in front of him. I just thought it was kind of a cool shot. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's neat.
let me
Yeah. I've
go
never I've
back.
never seen this one before.
Yeah, I just found that recently. So why don't we go back to the two of us?
Yeah.
Slideshow is over.
So that's it for the slides.
Yeah, for this particular
Yeah.
show.
I think, yeah, I think this is great. Yeah, thanks for showing us all this stuff and taking the time to, really go through and explain it because like you said, there's a lot of always confusion about it and did a real deep dive in history here, but not just the venues, but the bands and of course the light shows, which were a major, major part of, this scene from like, 66 to 71 or so. So yeah.
Right, and Bill Graham presents. He kept it going. He hired them.
Yeah.
He had them, so he kept going, and it just turned into like more lighting and more spotlights and stuff like that for
Right. Yeah.
acts that wanted to rock, wanted to run around on stage. And kind of a
Yeah.
different vibe in the '70s. And so, if you were a light show guy and it was 1972, you were probably out of work.
You're out of work. Yeah, I thought this would be a good time to, the way to, phase out of this show is around 72, like you're saying, you're out of work. Um, you know, I know that there were light shows here and there that would happen throughout the 70s or even a little bit of the 80s and stuff like that. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, even though they were spotty, they definitely went on. Like it didn't just stop, right?
No, it didn't. Well, Josh went off
He he,
and to
he
do television.
Josh, well, yeah,
Josh
he did
Went.
Joshua Television where
So that kind of ended, but there were
IMAG.
still some guys going, like this Jay Moss guy in the film, and they did some stuff in Madison Square Garden,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and they had another theater there, a smaller theater that did light
yeah,
shows,
yeah, yeah. The
and
starts with an F. I forget what it's called. Now it's probably the name of some
so
corporation.
there was some stuff still going in New York, and then of
Okay.
course Ed kept the Pepperland open up in San Rafael, and Bob Pullum did shows, but it was a low ceiling. It was more like he was lighting and projection
Yeah,
combo.
yeah,
So that ended up lasting for a year or two, smaller kind of stuff. But Grateful Dead and Pink Floyd and bands played there.
right.
Then Ed went on tour with John Lee Hooker. Okay, it's probably his tour he did. Kind of a light show and John Lee Hooker combination. It could play in like Texas or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then John Brand, who was San Francisco Lightworks, who I did not mention earlier.
Yeah.
So he ended up making an audiovisual company and doing like, convention slideshows, for like,
Right.
like we're going
Yeah.
to show our new Mack truck,
Yeah. Well,
here.
Neil,
So,
Bob Lewis actually did the same thing. He basically came to Boston, and he actually ended up running one of the biggest AV companies in the 70s and 80s. They were like the first ones to do IMAG for like boxing arenas and stuff like that. So
so Brand, okay, so John Brand now is back in the United States. He moved to New Zealand, and his original Liquid girl, Susie, they're married now.
mhm.
And it's a long story, but she's going to be one of our guests on our multi-light show 60s guest show.
Cool.
That she's committed to me. And John is going to talk about all the stuff he did in the 80s, and he carried light shows through. And
Cool.
he did
Yeah.
that famous Moscone Center one with a mountain of equipment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which if you
We're
look on
going to show
my
that on our next. I have some slides of that.
yeah, we got to
On our
show
next
that because
show.
that's probably one of the biggest light shows that was ever done. Which
Right.
brought in also Jay Moss and the guys from I think Joe's Lights maybe, or the guys from
Jane
Pablo
Moss.
and Pablo
Yeah,
Lights
Pablo is
from New
New
York,
York.
and then they
Anyway,
came
so then
together.
he also did, when they reopened the Fillmore in '85, Bill Graham reopened it, the old Fillmore,
Okay.
1985. He did this TV show for HBO, and they did Chambers Brothers, and I don't know, there's some other artists, Sly and Family Stone, and he did the
Yeah.
light show for that,
Okay.
which is a television show.
Right.
And then he also did the Doors movie
Right.
and the light show in that.
Which you
So,
were
which was,
also in though.
yeah. And so he's gonna come. He wants to do a show on the '80s
Yeah,
bands.
yeah, let's do it. Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah,
that's
I mean, he committed to me yesterday on it. So,
good, cool.
so he's
Yeah,
a
because
friend
I mean,
of mine.
we did some deep dives here, but uh, like you said, past like 72, the documentation is super spotty from those 70 to 80s. It's like if you didn't know, you would think that light shows didn't exist, but we do know, and we know guys like
Well,
Donovan and Reed were going, and
not really, not at that point.
no, not yet.
Okay, so Brand has his presentation service, so he's got all the equipment. Plus, they got that projector baby. And
Right.
Charles Suttles from Pablo brings baby in, so they got a killer overhead and a really this custom thing, and they got all the slide projectors plus all the slides left over from San Francisco Lightworks, so they would do shows. So then this band got formed called the Dinosaurs. It's
Hmm.
like five guys, one guy from Country Joe, one guy from Quicksilver, one guy from Airplane, one
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
from Grateful Dead, that songwriter, and they formed this band. And so they started hiring light shows. So Jerry got gigs, and the Brotherhood got gigs, and San Francisco Lightworks got gigs. Now this is like '88.
Right. And then there's a couple of actually fairly decent videos. I mean, it's
Right,
shot on camcorder, but there's some decent videos online of this stuff. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like what rebirthed it, the resurgence. Okay,
Yeah.
and then I'm just go really brief here. Jerry moves on to the
Adult.
Kennel Club, and he's doing
Oh,
these dance things every night, and he's training people like Reed and Phyllis in the late '80s.
late 80s. Gotcha.
And then they're doing these thrash metal bands and these like funk metal bands they're playing,
Right.
that are coming through, right? Like in punk bands or grunge bands.
Yeah.
And so,
You were saying
so then,
Like the Melvins and
yeah,
Mudhoney
I
and
used to
bands.
do Melvins, but yeah, the Sea Hags and the weird, whatever, Mr. Bungle,
Oh
you know,
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. And so, whatever, so then we get a gig. And this is where I met him. I met Pete. He was doing, it was called Acid House, which was the rave of Europe that was going on.
Yeah.
It wasn't called a rave, it was called Acid House. And we were doing it at the I-Beam in San Francisco on the Haight Street. So we did once a month, we'd do a light show for
Yeah.
Acid House. And that's
Okay.
where Pete and I got our chops together.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's where, everybody started branching back. And then the rave thing happened, and all those kids that worked for Jerry
Yeah.
started doing raves.
And I know, yeah, and I know here in on the East Coast, we had a similar thing where you had some, Ken Dugan and Marco Ferrero. They started Optical Delusion, and they were kind of heads, in the '80s. But then once the rave thing happened, they really got a lot of work because they had the equipment, they knew how to do it, and so they were doing raves up and down the East Coast around in the '90s. So that's kind of also, I think, where we started to kind of see visuals and that kind of stuff come back into the music scene, and
And
so yeah,
at that point, we were doing Allman Brothers.
right, right. And then by that
Back
time,
the
yeah, you
Allman
guys are
Brothers,
doing big shows again, and
and
yeah,
in '90. So
yeah, yeah,
we kind of reintroduced it back to the rock world.
right, right,
You know,
yeah. So
and
yeah, man, I think we got quite a few. I think we got a couple of more episodes in us, and I think we got a lot that we can talk about. So
absolutely, I got a liquid one coming out.
right, right, yeah. What's the next one you think we're gonna do? We're gonna
Okay,
do
so episode 3 is going to be liquids.
yeah,
We're going to do a big study of liquids and how they're done, but
yeah,
it's all going to be slides and us talking about it.
yeah,
And then we're going to do the overhead projector,
yeah,
classic overheads, so that everybody knows, can learn what the original overheads were
yeah,
and how they work, and how we customized them back in the day.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, and then we'll also do some, we'll do a show on a Fillmore and hopefully get one of our mutual
oh,
friends to come
Fillmore East show, yeah.
Fillmore East. Yeah, yeah,
And then I'm right now. I've got we got Susie,
yeah,
and we got this guy George from Anacrombie are committed, and I'm hoping to get Jay Moss
yeah. That'd be cool.
and maybe
Yeah,
one other guy, maybe Bob Pullum from Brotherhood. He's over here in Hawaii for
yeah,
the next for the multi. Like we'll have like 6 guys on, talking.
yeah. That sounds awesome, man. All
Yeah.
right. Well then, yeah. So
All right.
I think that's it for our show today. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you everybody who's stayed and watched with us. Stick around. We're the Psychedelic Light Show review, and we'll be back soon for talk about light shows some more
All
with you
right.
guys.
Peace and love, everybody. Right on, man.
Peace.